Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is just a great game. Anyone who remembers playing this game for the first time really remembers when large scale met quality one of the first times. That's certainly not to say that Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Vice City didn't pave the way, but San Andreas was just something more. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx we ask the question, why was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas a big deal? The PlayStation 2 was an incredibly successful system. It is the best-selling video game console of all time and has sold 150 million units worldwide. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is the game that has sold the most copies on PlayStation 2, and it's done that by a large amount. Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec is in second place with 14.89 million, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas sold 17.33 million, so a very wide margin separates these two games. And it obviously came out on more platforms than PlayStation 2, however, to note that it dominated the platform that dominated at the time shows just how big it was. By 2011, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas had sold 27.5 million copies across all platforms, and that's a lot. We all responded very well to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And in truth, it's still probably the one I remember the most of. Generally, people consider it to be a very good game, perhaps one of the best in the Grand Theft Auto series. I've seen more than enough argument about the map versus another map in another Grand Theft Auto game. And in truth, the map is a good place to start. San Andreas, rather than being a city, is a state. Kind of a tri-county area, if you will, made up of 3 cities. Los Santos, which corresponds to Los Angeles and was later expounded on for Grand Theft Auto 5, San Fierro, which acts as a stand-in for San Francisco, and Las Venturas, which is Las Vegas. Now, Las Vegas is of course in Nevada, so they're taking a few liberties, but I mean, that's why we like Grand Theft Auto, is it not? It's certainly not for geographical accuracy we play the game, but rather the sort of image they create that references what we know in the real world. It's actually fun to see how they transform it and what elements of the cities they want to present as the essence of them. And that all 3 of these cities are so vibrantly characterized, even as somewhat of a pastiche, is part of why this game is so good. I love that it's easy to tell where you are in the game. It so obviously notes the change in city with a totally different look. It's obvious when you're in San Fierro or Las Venturas. The difference between these cities is so well highlighted that I often found that I tended to have a favorite area of the game, and I just hung around there, and it was San Fierro, which is this very pretty, calm city that you can still get into some serious nonsense if you look. The setting had so much to offer that it created its own myths. Because of how creepy it could be at night in the forest, or how eerie it could be in the thick fog, lots of people thought Bigfoot was in the game somewhere, or that Leatherface was about hanging in an abandoned hut somewhere. The internet wasn't as well organized at this point in time, and we didn't have a constant drip feed of information in the way we do now, and I think that lent to the sort of creation of urban legends associated with this game. And again, the setting was huge and gave you so much to try to see and find. But that's just the setting. The plot itself is just a totally different, borderline, unprecedented, and unrepeated kind of story. It functions basically as a satire of gangsta culture from the early 90s. And although it certainly falls into some traps of stereotypes, I think it's more important to talk about just how well characterized everyone was and how well the interaction between characters ended up working. This was probably one of the first games where the story was based around camaraderie in a way that it could be this good, and on top of that, for the most part, it nailed it. I feel like Final Fantasy XV, for example, wouldn't exist in the same state that it does It wouldn't get the same kind of praise it got for its characterization of four buddies if Grand Theft Auto San Andreas didn't do what it did. The main character, CJ, is a member of the Grove Street family's gang, and what starts out as a turf war between them and several other rival gangs quickly balloons into a large statewide syndicate built by CJ and all of the pressures and threats that come along with that. Well, like I said earlier, the game sometimes falls into very stereotypical performances. It does manage to have an incredibly diverse set of characters. And I mean that both in the sense of the ethnicity of the characters, as well as their demeanors, goals, and expectations. It is not perfect, and I'm not going to pretend it is, but rather than shying away, it ambitiously did at least try. It also was more than willing to paint characters in both a positive and a negative light, depending on the context. Like I said, we saw the camaraderie of the gang members, something that gang members aren't really portrayed with in most media. And while they are portrayed as bad people in quite a few different contexts, they're also shown to be humans that talk to each other like humans. And you would build an empire in this world. You would travel to locations that they really haven't even tried to replicate in the ensuing games. There is a non-zero amount of alien content and Area 51 type conspiracy theory stuff in this game, and it is silly, it is fun, and it is engaging in a way a lot of games tend not to be. It was willing to keep the main story in the realm of real with all of these fun little diversions that just obviously weren't. And with your Bigfoot rumors and your Leatherface rumors, the PC version is also known for one big thing: hot coffee. With all the urban legends and rumors about Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the one that turned out to be true happened to be one where a couple of sex minigames were uncovered by a modder and made available for everyone. If this hadn't have been done, we probably wouldn't have been exposed to just how far Sam Houser wanted to push this game. The content itself was originally planned to be in the game. It wasn't added by the modder, it was unlocked. And when you read the original motivations for why the content was intended to be in, it's very interesting. It has to do with pushing video games to the same place that movies and TV were, which was basically allowed to represent all aspects of the human experience. Sex was one of those things. Not necessarily that it was going to be realistic or in some way that could be actually gratifying to you. It was more intended to be funny and push the boundaries, so there actually was simply just a popular example of a game that had sex in it and was allowed to be sold. The developers thought this was a good thing to do. And if that really was the full motivation, I'm there. I agree with that. It was something that for some reason other art forms were allowed to do that games weren't at the time. And it caused a huge controversy with the ESRB and the ratings for the game. That code had specifically been hidden to keep the game at a mature rating so it wouldn't be an adults-only game, which would restrict about 80% of its retail possibilities. When Sam Houser found out they wouldn't be able to include that content, he said it felt like we're not really pushing boundaries then. But at the same time, they were. They absolutely were. It just wasn't necessarily the cultural boundaries, the taboos that they were trying to break. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas did so much more than just that. The sheer amount of vehicles, the types of vehicles, the airplanes, which, yes, even that remote control plane that David Cross yelled all the annoying crap while you were trying to perform the mission. Curse you, Berkeley! Ugh. And here's the thing, even though that was possibly one of the most annoying things ever, it somehow manages to feel iconic in its own way. If you manage to beat that mission, which was incredibly hard, and manage to put up with the voice acting, which even the voice actor themselves couldn't do. In an interview in 2016, David Cross said that he hated playing that mission in the game because his voice is so annoying there. If you could do that, we're kind of pretty awesome, actually. And ultimately, the game itself was kind of what all of that was about. Giving you a place where you can do anything. And some of it is so silly, some of it is so wild, but some of it is so impressive and awesome. I mean, eventually you've got an alien jetpack in this game. and you could do stuff that is not possible in any ensuing Grand Theft Auto for sure. But to compare the possibilities present in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, a game of 3 cities that gives you just an endless number of things to do, comparing it to games outside of Grand Theft Auto now, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was more than complete. It was above and beyond what it needed to be, and that was it. That was that. You bought Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and you were in for a ride, and the ride didn't stop until you wanted to stop, and that just puts it in a different class. Grand Theft Auto games are still like that today, although I don't know that they've captured the magic of the map or the camaraderie of the characters that San Andreas really did. That's not to say Grand Theft Auto 5 doesn't exceed San Andreas in many respects, but there is just some element of magic that I'm not sure that anyone has reproduced since this game. What do you think? What did you love Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and click the like button if you enjoyed the video. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.